Hi, I'm Andrew,
And I'm Sam.
and we're NB Board Gaming, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newest John D. Clair game, Rolling Heights from AEG. This is a game that takes about 60 minutes for 10 and up for 1 to 4 players. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how it's played, and we're going to come back and give you our final thoughts. All right, so I already have most of the components out here for Rolling Heights. There are some that I have off to the side that I'll show you. But in this game, what you're trying to do is you are trying to score the most points. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points is going to win the game. And how you are going to earn those points are going to be at the beginning of the game. There are going to be these advertisement tiles. There are going to be 3 of them that are going to give you some end game bonuses if you meet their criteria. For example, this one's going to give you, for every completed building score, 1 point per cube at a height of 5 or higher in the completed buildings. So you're going to score extra points for buildings that are really tall for this one. Okay, you're going to have ones where you are going to score 5 points per neighborhood where you have the most completed buildings. Okay, so you're going to have these different scoring opportunities, and there'll be 3 of them that'll be out here on the board. Some will be a little bit more negative, potentially causing players to lose points, and there will be others that are based on different types of buildings. Okay, so that'll give you a little bit of an idea of how that's going to work. So you're going to score points there. You're also going to score points from building buildings. So as you build these buildings and you complete them, you're going to score victory points at the bottom there. So this one's going to give you a whopping 24 points, which is, I think, one of the higher buildings. But some can score you as low as 1 point. Just kind of depends. All right. The higher scoring ones are going to be your level 2 buildings. So as you can see, there are 2 different markets. You have level 1 and level 2. Okay. So you're going to score points from those, and you may score points from where you place them on the board. There are certain locations that will give you points if you build the correct building in that location. And then the next thing you're going to be able to score points are is at the beginning of the game, everybody's going to get 2 of these target tiles. And what these are going to do is going to be like your own little secret objective. And you're only going to score 1 of these at the end of the game. So you're going to pick which one you want at the end, and that's what you're going to score your extra little bonus points for. Okay, and then finally, you will also be throughout the game gaining these wild tokens that can be victory points for you at the end of the game. So if you save them till the end of the game, they're worth a victory point, but you can also use them during the game to get you some different colored cubes. Okay, so when score the most points, win. Now, this board is very variable, obviously. Depending on the number of players, this is all going to change. You have these 6 boards here that make up the main area that you're going to be playing on. You have the markets that are made up of 3 of these strip tiles that you put together, and then you're going to have the scoreboard here that is another board that all comes together to create the board you're going to be playing on. So the board's going to look different every time you play, depending on the number of players. Every player is also going to be getting these little boxes that they're going to be rolling their meeples in. And everybody is going to start with 2 concrete and 2 wood workers at the beginning of the game. So what you're going to do on your turn, they are pretty quick and snappy. What you're going to be doing is on your turn, you're going to be taking your meeples and you're going to be rolling them in your box. And depending on how they fall, they're going to earn you things. So in this example here, I'm going to try to do my best to show you. This one here is standing straight up. So that's going to give me 2 concrete because he's a concrete worker. Whereas this concrete worker over there, right, is on his side. He's only going to give me 1 concrete worker. The wood ones, the woodworkers, are laying flat. So they're not going to score me, or they're not going to get me anything, right? So I'm going to roll these meeples, and I take out the ones that are on their side or standing up. And then I have to decide, do I want to keep rolling or not? So if half of the meeples that I have are active, so in this case you only start with 4, 2 of them are now active. Once I reach that half, if I choose to continue to roll, I can bust. So if I roll again and they're both flat, Then I'm done. I busted. I'm going to get one of these wild tokens, and I am going to lose half of my active meeples that I have. So I would have to lose one of these two, and it's rounded down. So half rounded down, right? The max of these meeples that you can roll are going to be 10, okay? So as you're going to be getting more and more meeples that are going to give you different abilities, you will eventually cap out at only rolling 10 of these each round. Any that you're not using, you just kind of set off to the side. All right. So you're going to be rolling these, and you can do this in between players' turns as you're getting ready, and just, making sure that if you bust, you know what to do. But that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be chucking these in there. You're going to be taking them out, kind of pressing your luck to see if you want to try to get more abilities, more resources, and risk potentially busting. So there are a number of meeples here that are going to give you a number of actions. So I already showed you the concrete and wood meeples. You also have steel meeples that are going to give you blue cubes, and you're going to have these glass meeple workers that are going to give you glass. But then you're also going to have like these public servant meeples that help you upgrade one. So if you had one that was laying down, you could potentially you can then use this to turn it on its side. Or if you have one on its side, you can turn it so it's standing straight up and kind of help you maybe upgrade or help them to work more efficiently for the other ones that you've already rolled. You're also going to be getting there's going to be these public figures that are going to trigger abilities on tiles that you're going to be building out there. You're going to have these executives that you're going to give you some buying power to buy buildings instead of paying resources. You're also going to have meeples that are going to give you victory points. And you're also going to have these city planners that are going to allow you to re-roll without worrying about busting. That are, and they're all going to give you different things based on if they're on their side or if they're standing up, right? So you're going to be rolling these meeples, and then once you decide to stop, then you're going to, when it's your turn, you will be able to activate these meeples in your main phase, right? So you're going to be risking whether or not you want to push it. If you stop, then you're going to have your main phase where you are going to be able to spend these meeples to get their abilities, as I went over, or to get these resource cubes. So you're going to have your steel, your glass, your concrete, and your wood. And there's also going to be these miscellaneous cubes, but they only come in at the end because this game is going to end once one of these types are all gone. So once all the glass or steel or concrete or wood are all spent, then these will come in for like the final round, essentially, to fill in if you were to get resources. So if somebody does end the game and you're like, oh, I really need wood, you still will be able to build those, but that's how it's going to work. And the numbers for these different cubes are going to change also based on player count. So if you're playing with only 2 players, you're going to take out like 25 cubes of each color. Okay, so you're going to be able to get those resources, and then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be able to use those resources to build buildings. So I'll just take this one for example. So like this building here that we looked at earlier is wanting glass and steel buildings, right? And they have the numbers label on them to tell you how high they need to be. And if while you're building up, you forget, what they're supposed to, what the numbers are, they have them printed on the side there. Very small on the side of this small tile. Okay. And as you can see, here's an example of the purple, what are they called? The public figures, the abilities that are going to be on the tile that you can spend. Okay. So you can, if you had this tile out there on a location, you can add those. If you have steel or if you have glass, you can place them on there and build up that building. You can also buy one building either from the level 1 or level 2 market. And the costs for those tiles are listed here on the market board area, where it's going to range anywhere from 4 for the level 2s down to 2, or level 1s are going to cost 3 to 1. However, if you buy a tile that is not in these light green spaces that are the cheapest, let's say you bought this one over here, right? Then one of these wild tokens is going to be added to each of those cheap ones, making them more desirable, giving people potentially more resources or victory points if they don't spend them. Okay, so you're going to be able to use these cubes to build up. You will be able to use them to purchase and place new buildings. However, if you do have that executive, these will give you buying power as well. Okay, if you don't have a certain type of resource cube that you need, you can always go and do a commodity trade where you can give up any 2 resources to get any 2 of these in order to get 1 glass, 1 concrete, or 1 wood, or you can give up any 3 in order to get 1 steel. Okay, so you're going to be able to trade those out if you don't get the resources that you are looking for. On your turn, you can also use these to get resources. So if you don't want to save them for the victory point, you can use them to gain a cube of any color. All right. And then after that, you'll be able to complete the buildings, and some of them are going to trigger different ways of scoring. So we saw ones that gave you straight up victory points. This one here is going to give you victory points based on what's adjacent to it. So for every one of these, I believe those are like apartment buildings or something like that, or maybe a business building, you're gonna get 3 here. For every park or house, you're gonna get 1 that's adjacent to this. So you might not want to finish this right away, because if there's nothing next to it, you're not going to get any points. So you might want to be careful about when you complete those buildings. So that's what you're going to be doing on your main phase, really spending those cubes, buying up your area. When you do place these out, right, some spaces have an extra cost, right? So this space here costs an extra 4 cubes, but I have to place a house, a park, or this like apartment complex business area, right? Okay. You can build next to one of your already tiles that you have out there. So if I already have this out here, I can place this one on a future turn for free. I don't have to pay to put it out there. However, if I wanted to build across, because I don't want to build adjacent, then I'm going to spend an extra cube orthogonally on how many space away this is, right? So depending on the distance between these, you're going to spend an extra cube for each space in between them. All right. So if you build right next to it, then you are fine. And if I build here where a factory's at, I'm going to get 2 points. So I can get extra 2 points there. But you do have the option of leaving your area and going out to another neighborhood. Okay. So that's how the buildings are going to get placed out on the board. And as soon as you're done with your turn, and you can clean up, because what you're going to be doing, you're going to have these little player pieces that are going to mark your tiles, right? And when you're all done, you place this on top to show that it's completed. But when you're all done, any cubes that you have left over, they will be lost. So you do not get to keep them from round to round, and you're going to refresh the markets, and then it's going to go to the next player's turn. But while you're waiting for your turn, you can already start rolling and getting ready for the next time it comes around to you, right? So that's pretty much how the game's going to work. I gave a pretty brief little overview of that, so hopefully that helps you. And again, remember, at the end of the game, you're going to pick one of the 2 target tiles that you received to score extra points. All right, so let's go ahead and take it back up top and give you guys our final thoughts. All right, so that's a brief overview of how you're going to play Rolling Heights. So I'm a big John D. Clair fan. I'm just going to start that off by saying right away. So I love John D. Clair stuff. I was thinking about this earlier. I think if I were to break up my collection, he would be really close with Shem Phillips, because I think I have, 6 Shem Phillips games and 5 or 6 John D. Clair games. And so when it comes to designers, he's one of my favorite designers. And so keep that in mind as I'm going through this as well. But what did you think about Rolling Heights? What were your initial thoughts? I feel like I'll open up there because I have some thoughts of my own.
Okay. I thought it was really unique. And it almost made me feel kind of like we're building up like a Lego city or something, because just how you're like stacking it up and what it looks like when you're done. So I thought it was a really interesting concept. I love the whole like building up your own, I guess, what would you call it? Like a
Metropolis city, whatever you
metropolis
want to call it.
city.
Yeah.
And you get to, get points based on which buildings you build and how high you can build them. And I think it's a really interesting way of trying to like manage, I guess you could call them like what resource is it like a resource management game?
Well, you have those meeples, so it's kind of like, if you want kind of resources, because you're gonna be spending those blocks in order to buy those tiles, and then you're also using them to build up your buildings. But then you're also going to be collecting those meeples that you're going to be rolling.
Right.
So it's not a dice chucker; it's a meeple chucker.
Meeple chucker, yeah. Which I thought was a cool concept. Like, okay, if they're standing up, you get more cubes. If they're laying down, you still get like one.
You mean if they're on their side?
Yeah, if they're on their side, like depending on where they land, how many cubes you get.
Right, or how strong their action is, because not all of them give you resources.
Yeah, right. And then some give you points.
Right,
like the yellow ones give you points. So
purchasing power, some let you upgrade other meeples. That kind of stuff.
Right.
So this game, to me, which I kind of knew because I backed on Kickstarter, right? So it had a couple little Kickstarter goodies that came with it, but the game was pretty much done, right? I had seen this game at Gen Con back in 2021. So I knew it was coming out. I was very excited about it. It's a John D. Clair game. It has a great table presence, right? You got this 3D city that you're building up. Yeah. And I was in, and they showed me the mechanisms and everything, how it worked. I was very excited for the game. It does remind me a lot of another John D. Clair game, which is Cubitos, that we did a review on about a year and a half ago, that I rated an 8, and it's honestly gone up. That would be one that I would say has gone up higher. As I've played it, I've grown to love it even more. And the reason I compare these two is because in Cubitos, you're going to be buying these cubes that you're going to be rolling. And same thing, you can roll up to 10 of those cubes. In this game, you're going to start with just a few of those meeples, but you're going to be able to get up to 10, and you can pick the different ones you want to roll, and you're going to chuck them. And both of them have this concept of busting. And I think this one maybe addressed some issues with Cubitos, where in Cubitos, after you got 3 active cubes, if you kept rolling and they were all blanks, you could bust. Here, you have to at least have half of them active before you can bust. Right. And I feel like in Cubitos, when you busted, you essentially lost everything. You got a little bit of a little bonus that would help you on this little sidetrack. But
they were more forgiving in this.
They were more forgiving in this. And this, they'd be like, okay, yes, you busted, but you're just going to lose half of the stuff that you got, right? So it's a little bit more forgiving than Cubitos was. Yeah. And with that, they feel very similar in that regard, right? Because you have different colored cubes, each doing different abilities that you could, change up. This one, you can't really change up. The meeples are what they are, right? You can't pull out a different card and change what the meeple does like Cubitos does with the cubes. But that mechanism, very similar, just, hey, instead of rolling cubes, we're rolling meeples. And this is how they're supposed to land, and they're going to give you stuff.
That's a positive for me when it comes to this game. I'm not a big dice chucking person when it comes to games.
But if it's meeples, you're okay with it.
But if it's meeples, I'm okay with it. Yeah, because I feel like the odds are better. Like you still get something.
There's 3 options instead of 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, I would very closely compare a lot of the stuff that this game does to Cubitos. Now, Cubitos is a race, right? That you're going to be using movements to try and get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's very different. You're just going to be building up into a certain point. So talking about that and kind of giving that sense of, if you like Cubitos, you might like this game. There are a lot of similarities. But let's talk about positives really quick. Do you want to talk about your positives? first off?
Yeah, I already talked about the one that I like the meeple chucking.
Right.
I think is
You
cool.
like the building of the Lego buildings? Well,
Yeah.
Not Legos, but the blocks.
I like building it up, essentially having nothing and then being able to build it up and be like, oh, look at my city. And so that was really cool for me. I don't know, it's just like the tactile, like just building it up.
Right.
I liked doing. So I think that was fun. I love also that you can get different meeples that do different abilities. So it can
Right.
be like, okay, what do I want to go for? Because of, you can decide, hey, I want to build this specific building because I want, once I complete it, I get this meeple.
Mhm.
And then you kind of keep building, like they're going to keep building off of each other.
Right.
Based on, oh, I need glass or I need wood or whatever
Right.
that specific.
Right. And this
cube
one,
is.
you're not like in Cubitos, you were buying the cubes. And this one, you had to complete a building before you would get those meeples.
Yeah.
And have access to them.
Yeah. So I thought that was neat. Like I just, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I feel like this is gonna be like a lot, but I feel like it was easy to learn.
Mhm.
Like I think it's an easy teach. I think this is intriguing for people that don't typically play games because it looks different and
Right.
it's not like your typical like board game. And
it's one that if you saw on the table and you walked by, you would stop and want to see what the heck is this.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was cool. And I just liked it has a lot of replayability because it's gonna look different every single time you play it.
Mhm.
Like depending on what your city looks like,
Okay, yeah.
So you might wanna, I don't know, have different buildings the next time or whatever and make it look different. So, yeah.
All right. Positives, I think you hit a lot of them. I don't have a ton more to add to positives. It does have a great table presence. The teach is very simple, pretty quick and easy to get a hang of. I do like that when you don't get the things that you necessarily want, that you can potentially exchange them. Like, hey, I can give 2 wood to get the glass or something, or I can give 3 to get steel. 3 of any cubes that I need to get what I need, right? So yeah, great table presence. Yeah, I think you hit on all the positives, so I won't go and reiterate those. Okay, so we'll jump into negatives. Do you want to give your negatives, or you want me to give mine?
I'll give mine. I think the only thing that I mean, it kind of is a negative for me because I felt like I had to keep asking, like, okay, what does this meeple do? I wish I had like a reference card.
A player, yeah.
Yeah.
Player aid, yeah.
Player aid, whatever, with all of the meeples and what their abilities were, because it said it on the board.
It had them on the board, but if you were sitting in a certain spot,
if you're far away, it's like, oh, what do they do? Like, right. I feel like it would just be easier to have a player aid. And then for me, I prefer playing it at 2 players. Not necessarily like a negative, but I just feel like it's much better at 2 players because it's like faster.
Right. The box does say 60 minutes. I think at 4 players, I don't think there's a way you're going to do 60 minutes. No. Yes, turns should be snappy, pretty quick, because they do have a simultaneous, I shouldn't say this about that, is that once your turn's done, you can start rolling and preparing for your next turn. And once you're done, that way all your meeples are there, you know what you're doing, and when it comes back around, you can just go, right? Yeah, so that is nice. There is that simultaneous, which Cubitos did the same thing. Yeah. Same exact thing in that game. And so it can go a little quicker. At 4 players, though, it does seem to overstay its welcome for me. Yeah. I think it does go a little long. And I don't think it's necessarily AP that causes it. I think the reason the game goes long is because you go until a pile of a resource is all gone. Right? And there are a lot of those cubes. And so it does take a little while to maybe spend those, because at the beginning of the game, it's a slow buildup, right? Yeah, you're kind of going slow. You can just get wood and just get concrete. It's a little bit slow. So you have to go for those level 1 buildings and you have to build them up. So then, now I can get this glass, or now I'm going to get this steel. And a lot of times you're only getting 1 for each building that you're completing. and you're only rolling what 4 meeples at the beginning, 2 wood and 2 concrete. So like you don't want to bust, but you're not getting a ton necessarily at the beginning. So it's a little slow at the beginning, and it's kind of like, okay, cool, I got a wood cube or whatever, buy this stuff. And if people buy and they don't take the first ones, you can get extra stuff, which is nice. It kind of helps speed up a little bit, but it does feel a little slow at the beginning to build up. I would like for it to be a little bit quicker in that regards, because I do feel like because of that, it helps drag the game out a little bit long.
Yeah.
The thing that I love is also the thing that I kind of don't like about this game, right? So I love that it looks great, but stacking those stinking blocks, they're so small, and you got to fit some buildings. You have, 2 6 stacks and a 5 stack and a 3 stack. And a lot of times people forget, okay, which stack is what? And yes, it is written on the side of the tile, but they are very small. And if you are building in a giant area where a lot of other people are building up stuff,
it's hard to see.
It's hard to look around and see where the heck am I going, right? Trying to find out what spots do I need to go to. And that can be very frustrating. And I felt very frustrated by it. Or if you're building, you accidentally knock it over. It's like, oh my gosh, now I got to pick these up. It can be very frustrating, right? And so I didn't really care too much for that. It does get a little fiddly.
Don't play it with kids.
Right.
Little kids,
no,
I guess.
Definitely not. 10 and up, I don't even know if I'd want to play with a 10-year-old. Because I'd be like, oh, please don't knock over this stuff.
I feel like it'd be super easy. Like, you have to be very careful.
I'd be like, you better be the sturdiest 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Because the rules aren't hard. It's just the execution. It's almost like a dexterity game in itself. Especially if you're playing with 4 players and you got people building up all over the place. So with that, and then another negative, I do have quite a few negatives. I'm going to say that. And I love John DeClaire. But I wasn't crazy about the production of the game. The game board itself is made up of 7 different board pieces. You have the 6 rectangles in the middle that you can interchange and move around, which gives you that variability of it looking different. But I don't agree with it being highly replayable because you're going to be doing the exact same thing. You're going to be going probably for the exact same. Once you get to a point, you're just going to try to get those level 2 buildings and build them up. But back to the components, the board, at the beginning, they're a little warped and you got to kind of try to get them all to lay flat because they might be tilted up on this side or tilted up on that side. And then you have the boards on the sides and, things can get bumped and things could so easily just get bumped and moved around. And then you have the the track on the top. And I'm just like, I would have much rather you just had like a 2-player side of a board and a 3 and 4-player side of the board or something that. Because just because you can change the board up a little bit with the variability at the beginning, I still feel like I'm playing the exact same game. No matter what I'm doing, I'm still going to be probably going for the same kinds of tiles. Yeah, the meeples don't change at all. So I'm kind of there are some meeples I just completely ignore. I'm like, I don't need that. I'm not going for that. I'm not interested in it, right? And so I do feel like it'll get pretty samey after a few plays. But it looks good on the table. But in all honesty, that's probably where I'd like to just keep it, is me just looking at it on the table. I don't know if I want to play it a ton. It's one that I'd be like, hey, let's play this. This will be a cool, unique experience. But you're going to be frustrated while you're playing it, I feel like. You're going to be frustrated with it. It's going to look great, but you're going to be frustrated. That's my thoughts on it. So I do have quite a few negatives in that regard. I think they did maybe fix a few things that Cubitos had, and I was excited about this because it's essentially the same thing, just in a different setting, and you're doing, instead of a race, you're building up the city, right? So I do have quite a few little issues. One thing I thought was interesting, which is not a part of the which is not a part of the base game, and that is the Kickstarter. They do add in like little water properties that you can build in the water, and then they also have this interesting little mini game. I think we actually played it with Nick and Vic. where you have somebody that the person that won the regular game is King Kong, and he's sitting on top of these buildings, and people are trying to knock him off the buildings.
Oh, let's see.
And then actually just create. You played it with us.
What was it?
The little King Kong mini game. And so
I'm trying not to die. Sorry.
And so, but then it makes the game more messy to clean up and put away. So, yeah. But those are my negatives for Rolling Heights. And I was a little worried after I did the unboxing. I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. So that's where I'm coming in at. So I will digress, but those are my problems. Yes, it's very flashy, very cool. The main board I have that issue with. But yeah, you heard all my negatives. So I think let's go ahead and we can jump right into our final scores. I'll let you go. Well, I'll go first because I think you'll probably be higher than me. For me, I'm going to give this a 6.5. It's fine. It's fine. It's cool. It's worth, borrowing a friend's or worth checking out at a con or something. I don't know if it's worth purchasing. But I think it is. I think it's a cool game. It's not my favorite John D. Clair game, obviously, but it's unique in those in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 6.5.
Okay, for me, I'm going to give it a solid 8 because I guess with me it was more. I mean, you're the one that backed it, right?
Yeah.
And like,
it's essentially a pre-order.
Yeah. So I mean, I know like as far as the components and things like that, that's you have more of a problem with that. And I thought, though, I don't like how
the cubes are great. It's the board that
fidgety it is, and like being able to like knock it over and stuff. So I did feel like that was a hard part of the game, but overall, I just think it's really interesting, and like I would play it. Like, I think it was, it was still fun.
Right. So, I don't hate it. It's fine. It's just not one that I'm going to reach for when I want to play a game.
Yeah.
That's it. So it might stick around for a little while, but I can see us getting rid of this one relatively soon.
Aww.
Well, we'll see. So anyway, 6.5 for me, 8 for Samantha. Let us know. Have you given this one a try? What do you think about it? Is it one that you think that you would like, dislike? Let us know down in the comments. And please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
See ya.